father's side of the family is French, and while it wasn't, a big talking point at family meals or anything, I personally liked to learn about the French and what they do and how they do it. So just for the basics, it has a population of 66.8 million as of 2015. It grows about 1 million every 3 years, I think. The flag represents the connection between king and people. That's from back in the Revolutionary era. The white represents the purity of the crown and everything, and the red and the blue represent the people of the country. The capital is Paris, and nowadays it's a big superpower. It's part of the United Nations and the European Union. And so I have pictured the Eiffel Tower, the geography of the country. It's mostly flat, but you can see there's some mountains on the south and the east part of the country. So to brush over the history, it first started out as a Celtic territory named Gallia or Gaul. It was took over by the Romans when the Roman Empire was a big thing. It was then took over by the Franks, led by King Charlemagne, and that's how it became the Kingdom of France. A succession controversy happened, and they didn't know who to give the kingdom to, and it eventually landed in the Valois family, and that turned it into an absolute monarchy until the revolution happened, and that turned it into a people's republic. Then Napoleon came and turned it into an empire, and eventually it finally landed on a people's republic again in the 1800s. The language, it cuts off a lot of words early, so you can see like Maroon would be pronounced Moreau. It has a really flowing, connected language. There isn't any pauses or breaks. Language. I also have this chart, I don't know, yeah. I just made a cool little chart showing the first languages of the French, but so yeah, it's a colossal amount of it. Their first languages are French, but you can also see there's a little bit of Germanic dialects and Arabic, and then a small amount of Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, and 5% of it is miscellaneous. Customs. A lot of people in France get insulted if the country is insulted, so they become offended easily, and they may come off as proud or even rude to outsiders. And the people really appreciate the finer things, like food and wine. So cooking is appreciated as an art form in France. The central item of most dishes are usually some kind of meat. They like beef and chicken a lot, and they use a lot of heavy sauces. Like for example, hollandaise comes from France. A short list of foods from France. They've invented baguettes, eclairs, crepes, caviar, escargot, stuff like that. That is the national dish of France. It's called pot à feu, and it's a vegetable stock with meat in it. Wine is also a big part of dining. It goes with dinner a lot of the time. There's 4 major tiers of wine, starting at the bottom, which the grapes can come from anywhere in the country. All the way to the top is they have to come from special vineyards called the Grand Cru. But cheap wine is not frowned upon. People might also have that with meals. To go along with food, they also value architecture, painting, and fashion. So as for architecture, some examples are the Palace of Versailles, where the Sun King used to live, Louis XIV. The Arc de Triomphe is pictured. It's the center of 12 major roads, so a lot of people end up passing that, on their commutes. And the Eiffel Tower is obviously a big symbol of France and Paris. As for painting, the French Revolution produced a lot of great art with themes of freedom and rebellion against the rich and powerful. And France itself has produced a lot of big names in art, like Claude Monet and Edgar Degas. And the Louvre is possibly the most famous art museum in the world, and that's located in France. Fashion is also a really important export for France, and that it has been since the 17th century. So I pictured the dress right there. And France has coined the term haute couture, I think, and that's just like the fine fashion, you know. A lot of countries have followed in their footsteps. And just to finish on, influences on other cultures. So obviously it was influenced a lot by other people who have owned it in the past, the Celts, the Romans, and the Germans. But during the American, the colonial era, it owned a lot of Midwest countries, all of the blue on the map. And it got into the French-Indian War and had to give a lot of land to the British for helping out in the war. But there still exists a lot of French culture, especially in Louisiana and Michigan. French Canada was also a part that the French owned, and so you can see a lot of the French culture reflected in the French Canadians. And I just have a picture of the current president, Emmanuel Macron. He was he's been president for 2 or 3 years, but that just represents the fact that it's a superpower in the present world. You can see it's the United Nations logo right there. They're represented in the UN and the EU, so their voice is heard on global issues and continental issues. And there it is.